crew who are a great bunch. They're hard-working but also up for a laugh, and part of what makes me get out of bed each day. It's really quiet first thing, but there's always a lot to clean. Sometimes it's a bit of a mess and there's rubbish scattered around. I clean the footpath, the street furniture, the bins and remove graffiti off public buildings. I like it. It keeps me busy. It feels pretty satisfying to know that at the end of each day I've made Sydney Road look a little better for everyone who lives, works and visits here. Cleaner streets make it a nicer place to shop too, and that helps our local traders. And as everyone starts their day and the shop's open, I get to meet some lovely community members and their dogs. Everyone knows Sydney Road is legendary. We should all show it some love.
Did you know that Merri-bek is home to a diverse community where more than 95 languages are spoken? That's why we offer information on council services in your language. If you've received a rates notice that you don't understand, would like to request a new bin, or have another question for council, we can help. We have free in-person and phone interpreters who can help you communicate with staff at council in your language. To request an interpreter, simply call 92401111 and ask one of our customer service staff to organize one for you. You can also request an interpreter at one of our customer service centers, libraries, or maternal and child health centers. At Merri-bek, we're proud of our diverse community and we want to make sure everyone can access our services. For more information about our language services, please visit our website.
Wheel Sisters came about after some women in Fawkner approached us, wanting to learn to ride bikes and also find other women from their own community to ride with, including women who might ride in hijab or an abaya. One of the things that never gets old when you teach people to ride bikes is the sheer thrill they get when they realise they can do it.
The really special thing about teaching both the women in Fawkner and the women here is just the cultural barriers that they face every day, and coming from a place where they never thought they'd ever be able to ride a bike. A lot of them do reflect that it's been their lifelong dream to ride a bike, but they never thought they'd be able to do it. So it's just that extra level of being able to gift that to somebody.
I got really excited when I heard about this program. I'm almost 40 and I've never ridden a bike. I tried when I was little. Yeah, I still can't believe that I can ride, and yeah, it's been a dream and I'm so glad that it came true.
It was excellent, very special experience for me because it was my childhood wish to learn how to ride a bike.
Yeah, my experience was great because I've never ridden the bike before. So it was like truly empowering for me. And I thought I can't ever learn, but Kaz was really patient and encouraging.
At this age, it's a really courageous thing to learn new things. And any age, anyone can do it if they want it. And willingness is the most important things, and that's I prove myself.
I think it's good health-wise as well as environmentally. It gives me some physical activity to incorporate into my daily routine. I think it was great to find other people like me who have recently learned to ride, and we are all well connected now.
Yeah, after so many years, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity.
Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming tonight's council meeting. My name's Councillor Helen Davidson. I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and the chairperson for tonight's meeting, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all. We're meeting on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waterways on which we meet, and I wish to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Nations communities who have significantly contributed to the life of this city, and to all other elders from other communities who might be with us this evening. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and YouTube. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Attendees are advised that they will be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which supports the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency or disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please ensure that you follow the directions of council staff and security officers. So I'd like to introduce the councillors with us this evening. We have the Deputy Mayor, Helen Politis.
Good evening, everybody.
Councillor Natalie Aboud.
Let's go, Giants.
Councillor Sue Bolton.
Hi, everybody.
Councillor Liz Irvin.
Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Jay Iwasaki.
Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Kat Theodosis.
Hi, everyone.
Councillor Chris Miles.
Evening.
Councillor Adam Fulford.
Hi, everyone.
Councillor Ella Svensson.
Hi, everybody.
And Councillor Oscar Yildiz.
Good evening.
We also have the Chief Executive Officer here with us, Kathy Henderson, and members from the executive team behind us. And there are no apologies tonight, so I'll move on to leave of absences. We have one request from Councillor Svensson, who has requested leave from the 20th of October to the 9th of November inclusive. Councillors, could I please have a motion to move Councillor Svensson's leave? Moved by Councillor Irvin, seconded by Councillor Iwasaki. All those in favour? I declare that carried. I'll move on to disclosures of interest and conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to be disclosed tonight? No? As there are none, we can move on to the confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting held on the 10th of September 2025. Is there a councillor to move those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Irvin. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bolton. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Now we'll move on to acknowledgements and other matters. So this is a section where we have provision for up to 10 minutes for councillors to acknowledge and recognise the achievements of local individuals and organisations and raise matters considered important to council that aren't listed in the agenda. I have one that I'd like to begin with, and that is to acknowledge Kathy Henderson, our CEO, this is her last council meeting with us. So I'd like to take a moment on behalf of my fellow councillors to express our sincere gratitude to Kathy. This will be her final council meeting before taking a new exciting role. Kathy, your leadership has been instrumental in guiding us through some challenging and transformative years of council. From steering the organisation through the uncertainty of COVID to maintaining such a strong financial position that we are in now and ensuring stability in our budget. You've led with integrity, professionalism and deep care. As councillors, we have always found your door open. You've always given us your time so generously, and it's clear that your decisions have always been grounded in what is best in the best interests of staff, our organisation and the community. Your presence at countless community events, council briefings, has shown your genuine commitment to the people of Merri-bek. You've represented this organisation with warmth, energy and a great sense of humour. And we're all impressed by that. And you've also taken on board all our quirks and the hefty debates that we've had all in your stride. So I'd like to thank you for your dedication, your leadership and your unwavering commitment to Merri-bek. We wish you every success in your role, and it's so well deserved, and they are incredibly fortunate to be having you. We will be deeply missed, but we know you'll continue to make such a meaningful impact in the communities that you serve. So thank you. Now, councillors, are there any other acknowledgements that we have this evening? Councillor Politis.
Good evening, everybody. I have a few just really quickly. The first acknowledgement I would like to make is to the a food relief organisation called Our Daily Bread, which operates out of Coburg. Our Daily Bread delivers over 200 meals a week to the needy and to the vulnerable, and also has a dinner service every Thursday on the site of the Greek Orthodox Church in Coburg, and everyone is welcome to attend that. So I want to acknowledge the work that they do, because they have actually been operating since 2011, so it's a significant period of time, and it's a great service to our community. The second thing that I want to acknowledge is that it is Seniors Month in the month of October, and I want to thank Merri-bek Council for all the work that they've done and all the events that they have put on to celebrate our seniors, and there's a lot more going on because we're just early on in October, so I encourage people to attend one of those. And the final thing that I want to mention is that there is a Greek festival happening in Brunswick on the 19th of October on the site of the Albion Street Brunswick Church. It's a community church and everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Helen. And I saw Councillor Iwasaki's hand as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to read off a report regarding a conference I attended. So I attended on September 22nd the Victorian Greenhouse Alliance Conference in my capacity as a representative for Merri-bek Council and as Deputy Chair of the Northern Alliance for Greenhouse Action. The conference was at the Convention Centre in South Bank and attended by Merri-bek Council staff, representatives from cities across Victoria, and people who are involved in sustainability. This conference is an annual conference of local councils, experts, and community partners that focuses on practical climate action. It showcases what's working now in local governments, from making new buildings and road projects lower carbon to strengthening flood and heat preparedness, improving public and active transport, growing the circular economy, and measuring what delivers the biggest emissions cuts and community benefits. So for residents, this is very valuable in that councils can share those proven ideas and share that buying power among those councils, learn how to stretch those budgets further, and bring home solutions that have been applied in other councils that may work for our council, that reduces bills, improves health and safety, and creates greener streets and cooler neighborhoods. We had some really great staff on hand presenting at the conference this year, and hopefully we'll have more next year.
Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. Are there any? Councillor Irvin.
Yes, I just wanted to say that tomorrow is Peter Norman Day, and so this is an annual commemoration to honour the legacy of Australian Olympian athlete Peter Norman. And for those who, I guess, are unfamiliar with him, he was an Olympian who ran in the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, and he had a really sort of courageous stance in solidarity with some American athletes who won, I believe, gold and silver at that Olympics, and had a stand sort of to protest racial injustice. And he's basically been commemorated as having been involved with that, you know, taking a stand against that in solidarity with them. And Peter Norman was also born in Coburg, and I believe, you know, was quite sort of closely associated with the athletics community here. So it's just quite a, you know, interesting connection to Merri-bek as well.
Thanks so much, Councillor Irvin. Councillor Bolton and then Councillor Aboud.
I wanted to mention the achievement of another Merri-bek local. This person is from Fawkner. We had our very own, I don't know if there are any others besides Ridian, but we had our very own Merri-bek person at the World Athletics Championships, Ridian Cowley, who is well known in Fawkner. Lots of people see him doing race walking, because that's what he is. He's been a race walker and represented Australia at a number of different events, including Olympics over the last 10 years, including winning bronze medal at the last Olympics. And he's also one of the founding people, I've forgotten the exact name of the organisation, but it's a sports people for climate action group that's sort of, you know, trying to raise awareness about the impact of climate change on sport as well. Anyway, Ridian is very well known in Faulkner and many other places, and he's just a very staunch person.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Abood.
Yeah, that's a good stepping off point because Ridian's also a former winner of the Merri-bek Awards, which we decided on this week. So those of us who were tasked with the job sat down and went through all of the nominations, and there were plenty, to decide who the winners will be, and that will be announced next Wednesday night in the Town Hall. So really excited and looking forward to let those people know what a fabulous job they did. And thank everybody who made a nomination, because if you don't nominate someone, we can't award them. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Are there any further acknowledgements from councillors? If not, we'll move on to petitions. So there are no petitions listed in the agenda. However, we have 2 petitions that have been received since the agenda was published. So the first petition is requesting council review parking restrictions near the west end of Woolcott Street in Coburg. And we also have a petition from Bob Cumming, who is here tonight in person to present the petition. Please come forward, Bob. You've got 2 minutes at the lectern to present your petition. Thank you. Hi, Bob. Go ahead when you're ready.
I'm Bob Cumming from 28 Woolcott Street, where I've lived for 18 years, presenting a petition signed by 23 of the 29 homes in Woolcott Street to remove the no stopping signs at the railway end of the street and instead formalise angle parking, which has been happening there informally for years. In the last 10 years or so, it's increased with the increase in share houses, the increase in housing density in nearby streets, and the new dog park under the railway. 2 or 3 years ago, no stopping signs were installed by council, despite the policy that parking restrictions would only be installed in residential streets if it's shown there's clear support from the residents. The rationale when I rang council was that they looked at aerial photos, saw some congestion near the end of the street, and thought people might get parked in. And so that the purpose of the signs was to prevent people getting parked in. For the most part, the signs have been unenforced. Informal angle parking has continued unchanged. In the last 6 months, however, the fines have started coming, not on people's windscreens, but in the mail. In July, I made a formal request to council to remove the signs. The response was no. The rationale is to ensure access can always be maintained and to prevent illegal parking because the informal angle parking was technically illegal. We propose an alternative that achieves both of these goals: to formalise angle parking at the end of the street with signs and lines so it wouldn't be illegal anymore. And secondly, to install a short 2 or 3 metre no stopping sign, no stopping length on the south side so that the vehicle in the corner on the south side couldn't get blocked in. That would achieve council's goals, and this suggestion has support from 79% of the homes in the street. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Bob. Is there a councillor that has a conflict of interest? No? Okay. Is there a councillor that wishes to move the petition? Councillor Abood, seconded by Councillor Bolton. All those in favour to accept the petition, I declare that carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Bob. Now, the second petition is a request for $200,000 from Merri-bek Council for planning for a new purpose-built stadium. And we have lots of advocates in the gallery tonight. And also we have Alison Beckwith, who is the President of the Coburg Basketball Association, to present the petition. Hi, Alison. Hi.
Start.
Go ahead, yeah.
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, executive and officers. Thanks for providing the opportunity for us to speak today on the petition that we've submitted to your governance team. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Coburg Basketball Association and its membership, and we've submitted a petition with 1,556 signatures to date. My name's Alison Beckwith. I'm the president of the Coburg Basketball Association, and speaking on behalf of our 5,000 strong playing community to ask Council to consider bringing forward critical planning money to fund a feasibility study and concept planning for a new purpose-built basketball stadium. We thank Council for the inclusion of the $150,000 in next year's budget. However, we are hoping that you may be able to bring some of this funding forward into this year's budget process as you look at some variation to your current budget. And really that's to secure site analysis, concept planning and cost analysis, which we believe is a vital step in moving this critical project forward. We acknowledge the important first step that Council has taken with the draft North Coburg Sports Precinct Master Plan, and that plan confirms what we've known for years, and that is that the current Coburg Basketball Stadium is no longer fit for purpose. We're also grateful for the short-term works that Council has just undertaken at the stadium with some updated renovations to the entry, so thank you for that. The current forecourt stadium was built over 30 years ago. It simply cannot meet the needs for the basketball community in Merri-bek. Usage demands continue to outpace the supply of courts, with projections showing a need for a 10 to 12 court facility. So a little bit about us. We currently have 1 million annual visits to the stadium. We have 370 domestic teams, some players here tonight, 36 rep teams and 4 Big V teams representing the state of Victoria. We have a gender split of 70% male and 30% female, so very aligned with Council's own programs. 130 technical officials, 350 registered coaches and operate from 13 school sites. I'll wrap up. We think it's really important to get this planning happening quickly so that we can actually gear up to plan and advocate together with Council as we lead into the state election. So we thank you for your consideration.
Great. Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you to every player who has come here tonight to be such strong advocates. And councillors, is there a conflict of interest to declare? No. And Councillor Yildiz, you're wanting to move the petition? Yes, and Councillor Aboud to second. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Yeah. Now, councillors, are there any petitions from councillors to move this evening? No, if there are none, we'll move on to questions of council and community statements. So the time provided for questions and statements is 30 minutes, and this time can be extended by a further 30 minutes by resolution of this council. If we don't have time to answer your questions, it will be taken on notice and responded to in writing. Priority will be given to questions and statements that relate to matters listed in the agenda. If time allows, questions about items other than those listed in the agenda will be considered. A maximum of 2 questions or statements in any combination is allowed per person, and questions or statements that relate to a matter listed in the agenda will be dealt with first. If you have registered to ask a question, when I invite you or your representative, please state your name and suburb and then ask your question with a preamble or background for up to 3 minutes. If you have registered to make a statement, when I invite you or your representative, please state your name and suburb and then make your statement without taking longer than 3 minutes. If you have submitted a second question or indicated you have a second statement, it may be, at my discretion, deferred until all other persons who have submitted questions have asked their first question, or not be asked if time doesn't allow. A maximum of 3 questions will be heard on any one subject, and we will proceed to the next topic. If time allows, we'll return to the previous topic. I will either answer the question on behalf of council or invite another councillor to answer. Alternatively, I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer to provide a response or refer it to a council officer. There will be no response or discussion in relation to community statements. As detailed in the governance rules, questions or statements may be disallowed if they are defamatory, indecent, abusive, offensive, irrelevant, trivial or objectionable in language or substance. If a response to your question is provided at tonight's meeting, there will be no further formal response. However, Council will action any commitments made in answering the questions. So Council has received a total of 12 questions and 3 statements. 12 questions and statements. 3 questions were taken on notice. And the first question relates to the report, adoption of the 10-year financial plan. And we have Libby Phillips, who is online. Oh, in person? Libby, hi. Please come forward. Hi, Libby. Hi. Oh, you might need to press the button so that it goes green.
Good evening, Mayor Davidson,
Yes.
councillors and staff. Thank you very much for your time today. My name is Libby Phillips and my suburb is Coburg. I have 2 questions which I submitted today, so thank you to the staff involved in preparing a response. And I'm really asking these questions for my own individual reasons to understand how I can better support the Coburg Basketball Association and also Merri-bek Council in terms of funding for a fit-for-purpose basketball stadium. So my first question is, what council funding has been spent to improve the Coburg Basketball Stadium over the last 10 years? And can you provide a breakdown of the capital expenditure and the operational expenditure with a particular interest on the capital expenditure? Would you like me to continue with my second question while I'm speaking or pause?
They relate to the same topic, so yes.
Okay, thank you. My second question is to ask if the council has applied for any state or federal funding in the last 10 years to rebuild or improve the Coburg Basketball Stadium. And with this question, I'm seeking to understand if there may be opportunities to apply for state and or federal funding to build a fit-for-purpose basketball stadium for Coburg and the inner northern suburbs. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Libby. I'll hand over to Eamon, who is the responsible director. Thanks, Eamon.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for your questions, Libby. The Coburg Basketball Stadium is managed under lease to Sports Stadiums Victoria. And as part of that lease, they're responsible for the ongoing operational maintenance, like cleaning and fixing small stuff. So I don't have a figure exactly on that, but the capital, which you were particularly interested in, I do have some figures on. The club, through council, have received a number of grants to do capital improvements, including $32,000 in 2019 for seating upgrades in the stadium, and then in 2023, $40,000 for general equipment upgrades. In 2021, during the midst of COVID, we had the Working for Victoria program, which enabled a whole lot of people who were suddenly out of work to work, and they did some great things across Merri-bek, improving our facilities. And as part of that work, they refreshed the floor of the courts, which was recoated. So that's a huge job. It was about $100,000 worth of work. In terms of federal funding, so other levels of government that have funded, in the 24-25 financial year, council received $2 million through the federal government for the Coburg North Master Plan. And as part of that package, the stadium received an upgrade to its entry, specifically to address accessibility. To my knowledge, in the last 10 years, apart from that, there's been no other state government funding applied for or received.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Libby. Councillor Abood.
Is it appropriate for me to ask a clarifying question of the director? Just regarding $2 million was for the master plan. Do we have a number for what was spent on the entrance at the stadium? Just for Libby's
I don't have it exactly on me, but I can certainly get that to you, Libby.
notice.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Libby.
Thank you.
Next we have report 7.5, Moving Around Merri-bek Action Plan, draft a consultation, and Andrea Bunting is here in person with 2 questions. Hi, Andrea.
Hello, Mayor, councillors and staff. Thank you for having me. Andrea Bunting from Brunswick. I'm a member of Climate Action Merri-bek, and we are campaigning for better public transport in Merri-bek, and we're focusing a bit on buses too. So we are currently supporting the campaign for a 7-day bus service on bus route 506. The petition for this campaign has already gathered over 1,000 signatures and it's still open. This is a fantastic result for one bus route, which demonstrates that community groups can mobilise the community on public transport. Our next efforts will be directed to a bus campaign further north. Now, the Moving Around Merri-bek strategy identifies as key advocacy priorities the following: improve bus services in Fawkner and the Newlands area of Coburg North. That means bus routes 526 in Newlands, 530 and 531 for Fawkner are Council's key advocacy priorities. Now, in August 2022, Council had a resolution about regarding one of these. It noted that a tram extension to Fawkner is unlikely. Extending the number 19 is unlikely due to the large gas main along Sydney Road. So it therefore resolved to effectively extend that by using the 531 bus. So it resolved to advocate for a significant increase in the frequency and operational hours of bus route 531 to align it with the operation of tram route 19. And in March 2023, Council reported that it had written to the Minister and would be engaging with the Department of Transport and Planning about this. So my question is this: can Council please update us about their advocacy for the Fawkner and Newlands area bus routes, and in particular, what were the outcomes of discussions with the Department of Transport and Planning about improvements to bus route 531? More generally, in February 2020, over 5 years ago, Council resolved it would investigate options for a public repository of Moreland's advocacy work, as it was called then. That included updated information on the transport advocacy strategy, its project, and how people can be involved. So much of your page on this has not been updated in 4 years. We would like to see, we suggest that a public repository would be very helpful for those of us running community campaigns for public transport in Merri-bek.
Thank you.
The last was to be a question, but they told me too many questions. So.
Right, yes, I think you've asked 2 already. That would make it 3. So I'll hand over to the responsible director, Penny.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you very much, Andrea, for your questions. As you say, Council's been advocating around bus routes in Fawkner and Newlands areas for many years, and including bus route 531. That goes back to, I think, 2022 when it was raised. There was a letter written to the Minister. There have been a number of discussions with the department. They're ongoing. We don't have an outcome at this stage. So that's the sort of situation that it's in. But we have also been advocating to the state to implement the Northern Suburbs Bus Reform Project, which is one of Council's 2026 state election advocacy priorities that were adopted by Council last month. So it was also raised in our submission to Infrastructure Victoria earlier this year. And we continue to work with the Northern Councils Alliance to call for better transport in the north. So there's those multiple channels that we're working towards with this advocacy work. But at this point, there's been no commitment from the state government to make changes to bus service in the northern areas of Merri-bek. I should also say that our Moving Around Merri-bek strategy does outline core areas of focus, and it includes that'll guide our advocacy work, and it includes an action to actually develop a specific transport advocacy strategy, and that's probably the product we would see as being something that council would work on with the community and share with the community as a way to work together on advocacy priorities. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now have 3 people wishing to speak to the report at 7.10, Submissions to Activity Centres Program Phase 2 Engagement. We have Elizabeth Jackson, who is in person with 1 question. Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillor and officers. I'm Elizabeth Jackson from Brunswick and representing the Brunswick Community History Group. I've been concerned about the height limits that have been released for around the activity centres, and in particular the ones along Sydney Road. If you've looked at the plans, you'll see that it's a 8-storey limit proposed for most of Brunswick, and then 12 stories for north of Albion Street and through a lot of Coburg. I'm aware that the shops in Sydney Road have got a heritage overlay, though not the ones in Coburg, just the Brunswick ones. But as far as I know, this only protects the facades of those shops. So I am concerned that unless the council takes some action, we'll have a situation where there's a row of facades with 8-storey buildings immediately behind them, which would really detract from the character of Sydney Road. So I would like to see council look at the possibility of extending the heritage protection to cover the more northern parts of the municipality, and also to look at a design and development overlay which would protect the shops for a few metres back away from the road, so that we would avoid the awful facadism which could otherwise result. I think you only need to look at Lygon Street in Brunswick to see the awful result of developments going mad, and where it's been turned into a sort of canyon of tall buildings. So I would like to request that council give consideration for this and ask if this is being considered.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'll hand over to the Director, Penny.
Through you, Mayor, thanks very much, Elizabeth, for your question and for your conversations with the team this week. We really appreciate it, and Council really does value the important contribution of heritage to the character and identity of our places. Sydney Road, as you've said, features a range of sort of 19th and 20th century architecture, and it's subject to significant areas of heritage overlays along it. They're different at different points along Sydney Road. But I think our understanding is while the state government's proposing new planning controls, they won't alter the current arrangements in relation to heritage with those new controls the state would be introducing. So they wouldn't override existing heritage protections. That includes not just facades but setbacks and those sorts of things. So from an officer understanding, we'd expect that new developments would continue to need to demonstrate respectful design responses, respect setbacks, and those sorts of things. So if you do have concerns, though, we really encourage you as well to be raising those concerns with the state government, which is running this consultation process and which is seeking feedback from the community. So please do submit your feedback as well through to the Department of Transport and Planning. I believe there's a drop-in session at Ballon Place next week.
Next Wednesday afternoon, yes.
So please do drop past.
I already attended the one at Coburg a couple of weeks ago, and we have submitted our views on that occasion. The survey, though, that one is asked to fill in has a whole lot of motherhood statements that you can agree with, and then it has a section for comments, and there's a limit of 280 characters, so that's about one sentence that you can put in. I made the point about that to them too. Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback, Elizabeth, and our staff did actually raise that with DTP, and I think the survey has been updated to allow more feedback.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Elizabeth. Thank you. Next up, we have Asanka, who is in person with one statement.
Hi, Asanka Epard, Coburg North. I'd like to address the proposed submission to the State Government on its Activity Centre program. First of all, it's great that Council recognises the need for more housing and that it generally supports the proposed activity centres for Coburg and Brunswick. This will allow more housing, put downwards pressure on housing costs, and allow more people to enjoy these well-connected and high-amenity areas. This aligns with the feedback from the Phase 1 consultation, which showed community support for housing growth, and a general shift to the question of how, not if, we enable more housing. Unfortunately, the proposed submission does, according to the officer's report, reduce the amount of housing enabled in the core by 5%, as well as reducing the catchments. This comes mainly from reducing the amount of housing allowed in Brunswick, while partially offsetting this reduction with allowing more housing in Coburg. Now, allowing more housing in Coburg is wonderful, but it shouldn't be traded off against more housing in Brunswick, nor should there be an overall decrease in the amount of housing enabled. Most of Council's proposed submission relates to the technical details of how to enable more housing and advocating for more infrastructure. I believe that this advocacy would be strengthened if Council was not trying to reduce the overall housing capacity of the activity centre. And so I urge Council to ensure that its submission to the State Government does not call for reduction in housing, as it currently does, and fully affirm Council's support for more housing. Thanks.
Thanks, Asanka. Next, we have Helen Davies with a statement on the same topic. Please come forward, Helen. Hi, Helen.
Hi, thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Mayor and councillors and staff. Is it possible, just while I'm speaking, to have page 473 of the council
agenda,
notes put up on the screen at all? Displayed on the projector?
That's okay. We've all got the agenda in front of us, so we can turn to that.
Okay.
473, yep.
Is it possible for everybody to turn, and people at home if they're watching? I'm Helen Deans and I'm from the Glencan estate, and I've actually lived in Merri-bek for a very long time, 8 years in Brunswick and then 38 in Coburg, and I've been in the Glencan estate for that period of time. The Glencan estate is a particularly historic area. It was originally developed by after colonisation by the Malers, and as it was in 1860s. Anyway, as they sold off the various blocks in 3 lots, one around the Maranoa Crescent, one then around the top part, Glencan Avenue area, to returned service people after World War I, and then the lower part after World War II. Each time they sold them off, they had single dwelling covenants placed over every block of land in the area. And it's that reason why the whole region has remained relatively intact. It's possibly the most intact area for that period of time in Merri-bek, I would imagine, in that we have very few flats, and because we have single dwelling covenants, etc. Anyway, we're concerned because the current proposal that's come from the government for the activity centre has a complete blanket zone of 4 to 6 stories that just completely cuts down into Glencan Avenue. So it comes from virtually from the railway line right across and just cuts down. So it effectively cuts part of what is the Glencairn estate. It separates that, and so on one side it's single dwelling covenants heritage, the other side it's single dwelling covenants heritage, but this new zone, which is in the catchment, they've zoned it in a catchment, and it will just come straight down and completely go right over those houses on the eastern side of the Glencairn estate. The council has had plans were slightly different. You have actually lowered it so that there is an outer catchment where the row of Glencairn Avenue houses are that currently just have 1-2 story level, and then it goes back up into the much higher. But
Helen, sorry, can I get you to wind up? I'm conscious of the time. It's gone over the 3 minutes.
Sorry.
Yep.
We're just asking, please, if you would support us by having an alternative motion just to relating and cutting, just asking that Glencairn Avenue is removed from the catchment zone, and that area is just removed from the catchment zone.
Thank you, Helen.
Sorry about that.
No, no problem.
Look, the information about Glencairn Avenue is also in the local book that you can buy from the historic.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
I think this was a statement, so there were no questions asked by Helen, but we'll be able to talk about this when it comes to the report. Thank you. Next we have a online statement in relation to the notice of motion at 8.3, bus shelter program in Merri-bek. Bryden Cowley. Ridian, sorry.
Yes,
Sorry,
I'm here.
Ridian. Hi. Please go ahead. You have a statement.
Yes, so my name's Ridian Cowley from Faulkner, and my statement is on item 8.3, bus shelter program in Merri-bek. I'm a member of Climate Action Merri-bek, and amongst other things, we advocate for sustainable transport, which encompasses both public and active transport. Public seating is important for public transport users and in encouraging people to walk. For older residents, seating on walking routes is vital. The month's agenda also includes the living and ageing role in Merri-bek framework. In the consultation, Council received feedback from older residents about the lack of appropriate seating in public areas. If we had more seating at bus stops, these could be used by people waiting for a bus and also by people needing a short rest while they walk through whichever suburb they happen to be in. There also is a need for more seats at other locations on common walking routes. Climate Action Merri-bek supports having more bus shelters in Merri-bek, particularly at key locations. But we note bus shelters are expensive. We understand that each bus shelter costs about $50,000 or more each, and if council budgeted for 2 bus shelters a year, it would take several centuries to cover all the stops on the Merri-bek bus network. Merri-bek has many bus stops located on wide footpaths where seats could be installed easily and cheaply. Indeed, Merri-bek has installed quite a few seats at bus stops, including some resulting from a community budget idea in 2024, where $40,000 was allocated to these seats. We think that Merri-bek needs a yearly budget to install seats, both at bus stops and on walking routes, and so we suggest that the motion be modified by adding the following. That the council should also receive recommendations on how to speed up the number of seats at bus stops and on walking routes, and that the council refers to next year's budget process consideration of $100,000 each year to install more seats at bus stops and on walking routes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have 2 questions relating to non-agenda items, and they are from Amelia France, who has a question in relation to the cat curfew and also illegal dumping of hard rubbish. Please come forward, Amelia. Is Amelia in there? Okay. It doesn't look like Amelia's here, so we will conclude question time at 7:15 and move on to council reports. So the first report that we have on the agenda is 7.1, 2024 to 2025 Merri-bek City Council Annual Report. And I would like to move the report, and if I have a seconder, thank you, Councillor Theodosis. So I wanted to briefly speak to this report. Over the past year, Merri-bek has focused on what matters most, which is delivering quality services and real benefits that improve people's everyday lives. We've invested in community facilities that bring people together, from the $36.8 million redevelopment of Fawkner Leisure Centre, which is now open for fitness and social connection, to Ballan Place in Brunswick, a $30 million cultural and community precinct for families, artists and local groups. Our focus on core services has remained strong. In the past year, we've delivered more than 150 essential services, from meals, vaccinations, street cleaning to recycling and tree planting. That includes over 70,000 meals delivered, 15,000 tonnes of food and garden waste diverted from landfill, and nearly 25,000 kilometres of streets swept. We've also expanded our early years facility in Derby Street and Oak Park, kindergartens, to meet the needs of growing families in the municipality, and opened new parks through our Park Close to Home policy. We've stayed financially responsible and managing the rising costs while continuing to deliver high quality services. Through our strong advocacy, we've been standing up for our community, pushing for funding for continued aged care and investment in the Upfield rail line. These are things that are going to make a real difference in people's lives. And we continue to plan for the future through our council plan for 2025 to 2029, which was shaped by so many community voices that we heard from. I wanted to really thank our council staff, the volunteers from the community and councillors for their dedication, and our residents for their ideas and passion. Together, we're building a Merri-bek that's vibrant, inclusive and focused on delivering the services that make a difference. And I'd like to hand over to Councillor Theodosis as seconder.
Mayor.
Thank you.
So the council annual report gives some information on our operations and services delivered across the community, and also highlights some of our achievements that we've had in our municipality, which, as the Mayor highlighted, in particular Fawkner Pool, Ballan Place, also expanding our early years facilities, including Derby Street Childcare Centre and also Oak Park Kinder, which was really exciting, and we got the opportunity to go and visit the opening. As well as improvements to our core services, which I know is really important to a lot of residents. So, if anyone else is interested to hear about all the things that council has achieved, I'd really encourage you to go and have a read through our annual report.
Great, thank you, Councillor Theodosis. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. We'll now move on to the adoption of the 10-year financial plan, 2025 to 2035. Is there a councillor who wishes to... Councillor Pulford. And a seconder? Councillor Theodosis. Thank you, Councillor Pulford.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the adoption of our 10-year financial plan from 2025 to 2035. It's a requirement under the Local Government Act of 2020 that each new term councils prepare this, as well as an asset plan, 10-year asset plan, which is the next item on the agenda. We put this out a couple of months ago for consultation. We received one submission, and the submission was probably more related to specific projects that person wanted to see funded, and whereas this is the big 10-year financial plan, kind of quite high level. So I think we should take note of the submission in our budget process and encourage the submitter to also engage in our budget process next year. But yeah, happy to recommend this for recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Theodosis.
Thank you. So the financial plan, as Councillor Pulford touched on, broadly sets out how council can fund essential services and projects in coming years, and helps identify council's current and projected financial capacity to help us continue providing services and facilities to the community. It's also based on the goals that we set out in our council plan that we adopted not that long ago. And the financial plan looks at maintaining a modest operating surplus whilst continuing to spend on the renewal and upgrade of community assets, and looks to improve what we deliver and how we deliver our existing services. Draft plan, also went out for public exhibition, and I'm happy to see that Council has a modest financial plan that still ensures that we are delivering high quality services to our community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Theodosis. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. And next up we have the adoption of the 10-year asset plan for 2025 to 2035. Is there a councillor who wishes to move 7.3? Councillor Pulford, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Miles, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Pulford.
Yeah, this is just the 10-year asset plan that I mentioned previously. Again, we put it out for consultation. I don't believe we got a submission on this one. So thank council officers for their work, and that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Miles. Thank you very much. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll now move on to 7.4, Circular Economy Strategy and Climate Emergency Action Plan 2025 to 2030, final for adoption. Is there a councillor to move this? Councillor? Okay. Councillor Bolton to move and Councillor Theodosis to second.
Okay, I'm moving the officer recommendation, but with some changes. So I'll read out the changes, and if I get a second, I'll explain why I'm moving them. So the first point is, actually, are they on the screen? Okay, so there's a new point 4, which I'm moving. One is to add the following point to the advocacy asks under waste and circular economy of the Climate Emergency Action Plan. And this isn't a brand new thing. It's been council policy since 2018 and is in the circular economy strategy, but it needs to, for completeness, be added here as well. And that is asking the Victorian Government to end the practice of thermal waste to energy and instead focus policy and investment on fast-tracking solutions to waste avoidance. So that is getting rid of these big toxic incinerators. But then the other points are to strengthen the requirement that body corporates offer better recycling and circular economy options where they use private waste contractors, which are becoming more and more frequent. Thirdly, to work with food businesses to introduce stronger measures to reduce single-use takeaway containers and use 100% reusable crockery and cutlery for in-store dining, including considering planning requirements for new businesses, example, McDonald's, Hungry Jack's, etc. And lastly, improves recycling and recovery from construction and demolition waste at small construction sites and by builders across Victoria. If I get a second, I'll explain a little bit more.
Councillor Theodosis, you happy to second? Yes, Councillor Theodosis will continue to
second.
second.
So I just, the reason I've moved these is because I felt that one little gap in what we had in the circular economy strategy, which is about trying to reduce waste going to landfill, hopefully to zero at some point within the next 15 years. But I felt that there was a lot of focus on householders, but not enough on business and industry. And there was a need to try and do some things to address industry, because in reality, we can recycle all we like, and it's a good thing to recycle, and I don't want to discourage householder recycling. But if we're doing all the recycling and business isn't doing its share, then we're not going to get anywhere. And unfortunately, some of these are things which the state government is responsible for, some are federal government's responsible for. And so I was looking at some practical things to deal with these issues. And, you know, council always gets endless complaints about litter every year. But the reality is, until businesses like, you know, the fast food industry stop giving people throwaway containers when they're sitting in their restaurants, then the litter problem will just get worse and worse and worse. That's just one example. And there's a massive need for recycling in the building industry. So those are massive things. There's some other points. The other important part of the policy is the our climate emergency action plan, and that, you know, I think that is pretty good, and it does encourage more ambition. In particular, it's looking at not just where it gets its energy from, because council is doing quite well in terms of shifting to renewable energy, but there's a need to address some of the other elements of where emissions are coming from.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Theodosis. Thank you. So yeah, as Councillor Bolton already stated, this is a report to adopt Council's Circular Economy Strategy and Climate Emergency Action Plan. And as I was going to say one of the youngest councillors, but I think I might be the youngest councillor. I don't know if that's a flex, but I have a passionate and unique perspective on this topic, as climate change is something young people, but people of all ages are really concerned about, and is probably the biggest threat to our generation. And I'm glad to see Merri-bek taking action on this. This went out for community feedback, and we heard what the community want to see, and that's a more ambitious goal for local energy storage by 2030, anticipating a positive contribution from the federal government's Cheaper Home Batteries program. We've also adding an action to investigate the potential to establish or partner to establish a library of things to foster equipment reuse in Merri-bek. It also integrates priority actions for 3 related strategies, such as collaborating to identify and address council and community climate risks and increase our resilience against climate impacts, particularly heat and other weather extremes, and tackling the unsustainable way we buy, use and dispose of goods and materials to mitigate climate and ecological damage, and reducing community and council climate pollution through our energy transition, sustainable transport and waste and consumption.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Theodosis. If there's any further speakers speaking against or for, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kat and Councillor Theodosis and Councillor Bolton for moving and seconding this this motion. Yeah, one of the important things about thermal waste energy is that it potentially incentivizes creating waste. And on council and with our circular economy strategy, we're trying our best to do the opposite. Find ways to avoid creating that waste in the first place, and waste energy simply incentivizes burning waste for energy and not the opposite. So it's great to have this as part of an advocacy strategy. Unfortunately, you know, we've had a state and federal government that is not taking the climate emergency seriously enough, with still being beholden to natural gas and adding more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So it falls to local councils like Merri-bek Council to actually lead, which I think we're doing a pretty good job on.
Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. Councillor Miles, speaking for?
For, yeah.
Right,
I'll be
okay.
very quick though. No, I think it's a really important point that Councillor Bolton's brought up. The single-use containers, and there's many times where I've gone to get sushi or something from a takeaway, and I've thought to myself, well, you know, I should take a container, I'll grab a container and I'll leave and I've forgotten the container. So I'm like, bugger it, I won't go home and get another one. But I think if we encourage businesses to not have single-use containers and encourage people to either bring their own or do some sort of thing, it will really help, because if I don't have a choice, then I'm more likely to go and get that container that I can continually keep using. So I think it's a really good point, and I'm glad Councillor Bolton brought it up.
Okay, thank you. If there's speaking for? Okay, yep.
Yes, I just wanted to speak to this because it is a really exciting, two really exciting plans. And council has long been a leader in this space, so it's really great to see this come to us. So it's something our community constantly pushes us to do more on, and we've really heard that through the engagement we've had on the draft versions of these, and we've incorporated those changes and I think made some really exciting plans that will, you know, see us through over the coming years. In particular, our Climate Emergency Action Plan sets out some really exciting and ambitious targets. And we need everyone's help to achieve these targets. You know, council is doing as much as we can, and it's also the community will play a really important role. and we're doing our best to enable that. We want to see more low emission, low impact transport, so we're doing programs like the Moving Around Merri-bek Action Plan, which is also coming up later this evening. We want people to live in comfortable, sustainable homes, so we provide grants for people to make upgrades to their homes to save on bills and reduce their energy consumption. And those are just a few of the programs that Council does, and we're really excited to see what comes from the community for us to achieve our goals and what we'll also be achieving. So thank you everyone who was involved in the engagement, and we look forward to seeing these action plans come to life.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin. Now, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. We'll now move on to Moving Around Merri-bek Action Plan, Draft for Consultation 7.5. Is there a councillor who wishes to move this report? Councillor Politis, and seconded by Councillor Irvin. Thank you, Councillor Politis.
Yes, I'd also like to propose an amendment to this report. Can we get that amendment up? Can someone read that out for me? Oh. Is someone able to read that? Sorry, I can't.
Yeah, so the amendment says, do you want me to read it?
Yeah, can you read that for me?
Yeah.
Just my eyes aren't
inserts
working.
a new section into the action plan at the bottom of page 3 of the action plan, at page 379 of the council agenda as follows. Access for elderly and vulnerable residents. An important consideration of the action plan will be ensuring sufficient parking to meet the needs of the vulnerable, the elderly, local businesses and the broader community.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, for me, moving around Merri-bek, this is an incredibly important piece of work, and we all want to ensure that our streets are safe and that everyone has access to moving around Merri-bek in a way that is accessible for everyone. And one of the things that for me was missing, I thought it was quite comprehensive.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Politis. Can I just double check that that's agreeable?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Sorry,
So
I didn't want to.
yep.
Yeah, please continue.
One of the things that was an omission for me was how we look after our vulnerable and how we look after the elderly. So for me, I think rounding out our plan is ensuring that we are taking care of everyone in our city and that we're ensuring that everyone has access to safe, clean, green streets. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Councillor Irvin.
Yes, thank you. So tonight, this is a motion to take our draft Moving Around Merri-bek Action Plan to community consultation. So this contains a list of actions that we're aiming to achieve over the next 4 years that form the basis of our Moving Around Merri-bek, which is the transport strategy that was adopted last year. And for me, this is a very exciting strategy and action plan. There's such extensive consultation engagement to develop our transport strategy, including a really amazing effort by our community connectors to get people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds to participate in the engagement. We had, I think, a record high number of the surveys done in languages other than English. So it was really amazing to see the breadth and depth of that engagement. And what we heard is that people really want to have multiple transport options. People want to be able to walk and ride around our streets safely and comfortably. They want our streets to be green and attractive. And I think it's an important point that Councillor Politis has raised. And I think as well as ensuring sufficient parking, we really need to be making sure that people do have transport options for their entire lives. As we know, when you get to a certain age, you may not be able to drive anymore, and you get to the stage of potentially having to rely on other people to drive you around if there isn't good, accessible public transport, or if there aren't safe and attractive footpaths for you to walk along, or if bike lanes are something that, perhaps makes you a bit scared as you get older. My mum's actually in the audience tonight. Sorry, Mum. And she's someone who, since discovering cycling again at an older age with an e-bike, will quite happily get around by bike now. So it has made her a transport advocate as well, I'll certainly say, and a real appreciation for safe cycling infrastructure. So I'm really excited to put this out to the community and to hear back from you all about what you'll say. And yes, I look forward to seeing all your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin, and welcome to your mum. Councillor Bolton.
I've just got a very small amendment, which might be acceptable to mover and seconder. So it is about 2.4, about curbside space. It was circulated by Penny earlier, and also just to point out that points 2 and 3, as they are on the screen, should really be merged into a point 2. When you go up to that, they've just, yeah, that's right, that's correct. Penny circulated something a little bit earlier. So on page 11 of the action plan, which is page 387 of the council agenda, in item 2.4, relating to curbside space, to insert the words "and parking" to the action description, so that would read, review how council manages curbside space and parking and develop, just continue. So it's just really to add "and parking."
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is that agreeable to Councillor Politis and Councillor Irvin? Thank you.
Can I maybe just explain why
Yes.
I've added it? It's really because, we can forget when you're involved in all of the discussions of this policy, whether you're an officer or councillor or involved in active transport space. Often we don't speak in plain English, we speak in terms of jargon. And I actually think curbside space isn't necessarily a term that's understood by everybody. So I just wanted to include parking there so that people understand we haven't forgotten about it. But I'm also reminded by officers that curbside space doesn't just relate to some of the more obvious things. It relates to car parking, loading zones, tree planting, outdoor dining and parklets, seating areas, electric vehicle charging, bike parking, bus stops and car share. So it does involve all of those things. But I did just want to add in the word parking so that people don't think have forgotten about it. But apart from that, I'm in total support of the whole strategy or the action plan, because I think if we can achieve the bulk of this, I think it will make for much better and safer streets.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Are there any further speakers? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll now move on to 568 Sydney Road, Park Close to Home, preliminary community engagement. And Councillor Politis to move and Councillor Iwasaki to second. Sorry, I looked over and saw Councillor Politis. Thank you, Councillor Fulford. Councillor Politis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really excited to be moving this report. This property is strategically very, very significant to the migrants and to the people who have lived and worked in this area over a very, very long period of time. The other day I walked into the Greek Pensioner Club that I volunteer at, and the very excited topic of conversation was the purchase of the park, and people were engaged in conversation around what the park meant to them, what had happened in that area over a long period of time, how they still use, many of them, most of them who've lived in the area for 50, 60 years or more, how they use the lane to go from Sydney Road, from the west side of Brunswick over to the east side of Brunswick, across to the church or to the doctors. And they were also very excited to be talking about the possible naming of the park. It was the most animated that I have seen this group of elderly Greek pensioners in a very, very long time. So I'm really pleased that we have acquired it and we're going to begin working on it. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of former Mayor Lambros Tapanos and his role in this acquisition, and I'm really looking forward to the community engagement on this one, which I hope extends very far and includes many of the elderly community clubs that typically aren't involved in this type of engagement.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Councillor Wasaki.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Politis. This is really exciting. There are a lot of community groups in this area who have been formed in the last few years because, according to the Better Breeze Block group, this is the second densest area of Victoria now, with all these residential areas that are replacing industrial warehouses. And these residential areas did not come with green space, and this area has not kept up in terms of public amenity. So this is a really wonderful opportunity, potentially a once-in-a-generation opportunity to provide thousands of people who have moved to this area with open space that's good for cooling the surrounding environment, which is a very urban environment, providing much-needed actual green spaces. There's some wonderful trees that are still there that we're very much keen to keep, and potentially turning a car park that benefits only a few dozen people a day to benefit thousands of people who have now moved in and are coming to this community and are spending a lot of time going up and down Sydney Road looking for businesses to frequent and uplifting the entire area. So it's a great opportunity. I'm really excited for all the community groups that are already expressing interest in formulating what this new park could look like, and I hope everyone is engaged as much as they can.
Great, thank you, Councillor Wasaki. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Pulford.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to point out that this is the first round of engagement on the block of land, and there's 3 options proposed in the engagement. Option 1 is to provide just that block of land that was built, which is about 1,000 square metres of open space. Option B would be to remove some car parks from the council-owned car park that's just behind it, which would create more open space, more green open space, up to 1,600 square metres. And option C is actually to remove more car parking spaces, but also close Staley Street and take over some of the road there, which could increase the parkland to 2,000 square metres. So it would also help make Staley Street safer because you'd have less traffic going through there. And I think this is part of council officers looking at responding to a notice of motion passed by this council in December, where we looked at how in some places we could turn car parks into, or turn roads into parks. So I'm really pleased to see this work being done by council officers, and also this is being put out to the community. Like, that would be a bold change, and we want to hear what people think, whether they think car parking needs to remain there, whether they could lose some car parking to get more parkland, or whether they could actually close that street, improve road safety, and make much more parkland. So please do participate in the engagement process.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford. Are there any further speakers? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, I declare that carried. Next up, we have 7.7, Living and Ageing Well Action Plan 2024 to 2025. Is it Councillor Politis to move and Councillor Theodosis to second? Go ahead, Councillor Politis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really proud of a council that continues to provide aged care services. This framework is wonderful in that it focuses on the physical environment, the social environment, and also the council services that it provides older people. We have, I think, 14% of Merri-bek residents are aged 65 or over. It is so important to continue to provide them with not only great exercise prioritised programs and ensure that the physical environment supports them, but also council services that allows them to stay at home for longer, keeping them out of aged care and also keeping them out of the health system as well. So being able to support our residents to live with dignity and to live fulfilling lives and to continue to contribute to the community in which they live in is not only an incredibly decent thing to do, it makes sense socially, economically, morally, and I'm very, very proud to endorse this action plan.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Councillor Theodosis.
Thank you. As someone with ageing parents and who also cares deeply about the wellbeing and welfare of our ageing community, I'm very happy to support this report. This report is all about supporting the healthy ageing of residents in Merri-bek. It has a strong community focus and is all about supporting older residents to promote their wellbeing. It was developed in consultation with older people. This year, there in particular was a big focus on social connection. This is through a few key projects such as Active Seniors Clubs, which supports over 1,200 people in our community. Council and Active Merri-bek YMCA partnered to offer outreach exercise classes at seniors clubs venues, promoting safe and engaging exercise, and social connection programs. We also have the Older Persons Reference Group, a group of 10 residents who provide lived experience advice on policy and planning. And feedback from this group has helped inform council's communication, also informed our open space and transport priorities and exercise initiatives. The group facilitated promotion of council's information and services as well. And I'm very happy to support this report and look forward to continuing to find ways we can support our ageing community in Merri-bek.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Theodosis. Councillor Miles, are you speaking in favour?
Yeah, I'm speaking in favour. Look, I think that I can't, everything that the last two councillors have said has been spot on. One thing I'd like to take the opportunity is to thank all the staff at Merri-bek who do this work and take care of the most vulnerable, well, some of the most vulnerable people we have in our city. When I just recently I was door knocking in my electorate, and then a lady was saying to me that how much safe she feels because her family doesn't live nearby, but she knows that someone's going to be around soon from the council, and it gives her ability to stay there and feel safe. So thank you to everyone, all the directors are involved in this, and all the staff who work there. Thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Are there any further speakers? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll now move on to free third spaces for young people. And at 7.8, and we have Councillor Svensson with her hand up to move and Councillor Bolton to second.
I'm really excited to see this report come back. So this is a report returning after I initially put in a notice of motion calling for us to look into increasing third spaces in Merri-bek back in March of this year. And since that motion was initially passed, I think the need for youth spaces in Merri-bek has become even clearer. We've heard multiple times from an incredibly impressive group of young people based in Fawkner, called Fawkner's Future, who've been really clear about the need for accessible spaces for young people, particularly in the north of Merri-bek. That there's just not a lot of places that are safe, accessible, free for young people to hang out and spend time together, particularly in the north. So in the short term, if this report is passed, it's going to mean a couple of really cool things really soon. So it's going to see us expanding our very well utilised Fawkner Fast Break basketball program. So that's going to go up from 1 to 3 days a week, which will be fantastic. It's also looking at providing support to families to run play-based learning groups. So we know that there's a lot of families around Merri-bek who want to run play groups so that they can, well, it's wonderful for their children, but it's also wonderful for the parents connecting with each other. But it's often actually hard for them to find physical spaces to run those groups in, either from a lack of spaces or from just the cost of the spaces themselves. So this will look at providing free spaces for those groups to operate. It'll also look at collaborating with that Fawkner's Future group that I mentioned to set up a dedicated youth space in Fawkner. So that's incredibly exciting that we're able to do that, and really shows the outcome of what great youth advocacy can do in Merri-bek. In the longer term, it's also going to mean that we'll be conducting a feasibility study to look around Merri-bek and see where we have the opportunity to create more free youth spaces and what that might look like all around Merri-bek to make sure that no matter where you are, whether you're in the south, the north, no matter where, that there's a space for all young people across the age span to go, spend time together, feel safe, and build those skills that really benefit the whole community. As a former young person myself, I'm really excited to see what creative ways we can utilise to expand these spaces in the future, and really looking forward to the next iteration of this report coming back in 1 year's time.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Councillor Bolton.
Yes, I think it was a great idea, Councillor Svensson, moving this notice of motion a few months ago. And, you know, I've got a particular interest in this because I've had an involvement with young people who formed the Faulkner's Future group in Faulkner, and meets every fortnight. It's really well attended, more people asking to be part of it all the time. It's a really great group. And one of the things that people talk to me about with why they need a youth space, there's several things. One thing is feeling that there are all these different social groups, but they don't ever meet each other. And so by having a youth space, it would bring people together across different groupings. Probably a lot of people do go outside Faulkner for high school. Be great if more people went to high school in Faulkner, but that's just what it is at the moment. And then also for young people who are catching the bus from Faulkner to Coburg after school, they get to the last 30 minutes or 15 minutes of the youth program at Oxygen Youth Centre. So it's not really, Oxygen Youth Centre isn't an option for a lot of young people after school. So I think this will be great. The Faulkner's Future Group will be running activities at the Faulkner Festa this on the 26th of October. Actually, I forgot to advertise that earlier. It'll run all day in Faulkner and the CB Smith Reserve. But I also think the other important element, which I haven't been as focused on, but I think is really critical, is piloting a family engagement program with free access to council spaces, because I think this is really necessary when there's so many families that feel isolated in all the cares in the world. And I know there's also a lot of families in Faulkner where they've got no family support and also have, you know, quite severely autistic children. And there's a real need for more support and to be able to meet other families going through similar situations and so forth. So I think I'm really hoping that this funding for this project gets allocated in the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. If there's no further speakers, I'll put the report to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll move on to Road Safety Forum post-event findings. Is there a councillor who wishes to... Councillor Irvin and Councillor Iwasaki to second. Thank you, Councillor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this was an event that was held last month, and I just wanted to thank everyone who attended. This event came about after a notice of motion that I put forward a few months ago after we had some fatalities on arterial roads in Merri-bek, and we heard from the community after each of those fatalities how much people wanted to be able to give more feedback and have more say about road safety across our municipality. So I also wanted to really thank the other councillors who attended, so Mayor Councillor Davidson, Councillor Abood, Councillor Svensson, Councillor Bolton, and the CEO, and Director of Place and Environment, Penny, and all the council staff who put on such an amazing event. I know a lot of effort went into it, organising a great facilitator, having such engaging and useful sessions, and yes, really appreciated the effort that went into it. And as this report says, we really did listen to the community who gave feedback during that forum, and some of those have been incorporated into the action plan, the Moving Around Merri-bek action plan, and will also form the basis for, sort of future road safety work. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin. Councillor Iwasaki.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but I followed close in the results, and I'm really happy to see these recommendations being implemented, because we have a wonderful community in Brunswick and Coburg and all throughout Merri-bek who really want to see safe streets all around. And as somebody who drives, who takes the train, takes the tram, rides my bike, and walks, you're confronted with different issues, in every capacity, and we all just want to try to make things as safe and beneficial for everyone. And unfortunately, it's people are dying to cars that are getting precedent and the right of way in ways that is unfairly apportioned financially and just culturally. So it's great to have these voices share that we need roads that work for everybody, and that we can come together as a community and find solutions.
Thank you, Councillor Saki. Councillor Bolton.
Would like just to make a couple of comments. I mean, I think it was a great event. Unfortunately, it was in response to real tragedy of, people losing their lives on the roads, including one right outside the Coburg Town Hall. But what was really pleasing with the event is having some more people from different parts of Merri-bek, because there has been a lot of transport activism and from people in Brunswick and Coburg, but there was more from Coburg North this time, maybe not so much other areas of Merri-bek, but and certainly in Coburg North, the Newlands area, where safer walking and riding on Murray Road has had a massive impact, because they've really well documented all of the serious crashes on Murray Road, but also a new group, Livable Sydney Road, Coburg North and Fawkner. That was mainly formed by people in North Coburg, sort of near the Parker Reserve, Rebels Baseball Club. And they're, not as vocal a group and not as well organised at this point, but they're drawing attention to some of the safety issues, especially going north from Gaffney Street up to the Western Ring Road. And there are major safety issues in all sorts of parts of Merri-bek, but also there's some areas where there's no residents groups, but there are a lot of safety issues. And so we also have to be very mindful of the fact that there are probably some unsafe roads and unsafe areas that we're not picking up because, for whatever reason, there aren't people available to build a residents campaign in those areas.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Abood.
Oh, that was on the whole time. Thank you, Mayor. It was a really impressive forum and really well facilitated, and a lot of the usual suspects, but as was commented on, some new people in the space as well. And we broke into different sort of working groups and addressed specific issues. But the thing that really stayed with me that I think is probably instrumental in the deaths that have occurred was to do with people's behaviour on roads, and specifically about phone use. And unfortunately, there are about 9 million different reasons to look in your phone, and most of them are quite legitimate. And I've got 2 phones. I think most of us have got 2 phones. So that's twice as many reasons. And I don't think many of us have the discipline to keep the phone out of reach. And it's a pretty easy thing to grab a phone. And I think that once you are engaged with your phone, you're no longer engaged with the road. And that's when the real problems occur. I don't know how many people know that it's a $1,250 fine for using your phone in a car, because I don't think enough of us get fined. And so part of what I hoped would come of this forum is just that maybe we could, and this could still happen, doesn't need to be resolved in the chamber, I don't think, but just ask whoever is implementing those fines to maybe have a blitz or do something like that, so that there is a bit more of a, once things cost us money, we really start to notice them. So I guess that would just be maybe a gap with this work that we could follow up on, but I don't think it needs to be amended. I think it was a fantabulous forum. I really loved attending it, and it was great to see all of the local community advocates involved.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Abood. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll move on to 7.10, Submissions to Activity Centres Program Phase 2 Engagement. Is there a councillor who wishes to move this report? Councillor? Yes, go ahead.
So I'd like to move a slightly amended resolution, which I sent around earlier today. Anyway, I'll just read out what it said. At the end of... Yeah, it's basically, it adds an extra point 2 to insert an additional sentence into the Part A submission. What we're asking for as follows. Council notes that residents of Glencairn Avenue, Coburg, have raised with Council the existence of covenants restricting height, actually probably should be covenants and heritage overlay, restricting height and development in that area. Council requests that the DTP consider these and any other covenants which might have a bearing on heights in the surrounding area.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a seconder? Are you happy with that wording, Councillor Bolton?
I think I probably need to add in heritage overlay. Yeah. Existence of heritage overlay, yeah.
Yes. And is there a seconder? Councillor Abood, thank you. Councillor Bolton, go ahead.
Okay, so I think it's only a lot of residents don't even realise there's some sort of public discussion, public consultation about these activity centres, and a lot of residents, there are a few residents who've just really twigged to this through seeing this item of the council agenda, but I'd say most people aren't even really aware that this is happening at the moment, unless people keep a close eye on council and government. And council wasn't given very much time to prepare a submission, and there hasn't been any public consultation on council's submission because we'd missed the deadline for making a submission. So it means that council hasn't been able to go carefully through all of the sites that the government's proposing to be in the core activity centre zones, the inner, what are they called, inner zones, inner catchment zones and outer catchment zones and so forth. So that sort of work hasn't been done, and the government hasn't provided the council with a whole lot of information that it's based its proposal on. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some errors in the maps the state government has provided, including this particular one, Glencairn Avenue here. There are also, I know, especially some of the history groups have got concerns around Bluestone Cottage in Coburg and the site beside it and the heritage shop fronts that Elizabeth Jackson described the issues really carefully. But one of the problems is that the existing activity centre zone already zones the area where the Bluestone Cottage is for 12-storey developments. Now, it's got a heritage overlay on it, so that is unlikely to happen. But there are a whole lot of issues with these activity centre zone maps. One of the things that council officers have tried to do so that they can try and maintain housing supply. Oh, yeah. I'll just finish on this point, is where they've recommended the withdrawal of some sites from the core activity centre. They have recommended replacement sites that they think are more appropriate. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and maybe in my right of reply I can add a couple of extra points.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Abood.
So this is kind of a bit of a necessary evil, all of this work that's happening with the state. And I agree with Asanka that we do need the density, and that is probably what spurred on the state government to hammer this through. But I also feel quite concerned about protecting the heritage that exists. You know, it's something that's in the current conversation. That there's a film that's been made by someone who owns the Thornbury Picture House, which talks about all of these heritage buildings that were knocked down, for modern buildings to be built. And so it's kind of about the interface. And my concern is that while we in Merri-bek have a great reputation for accommodating some density and understanding that, most of us are walking distance from the CBD, and that means we can expect density, it needs to be a balance. And we need to make sure that we're protecting some of those important pieces of history that can never be replaced. And once they're gone, they're gone. So, while we are fairly nimble and we're creating new parks because we understand that part of the equation, and we need to also consider that we probably need to do a bit of a better job at protecting the heritage that exists here. And I don't know that that's something that is necessarily going to be fully appreciated by the consultation process that the Activity Centres program is looking at. So I do feel fairly cynical about our contribution, only because I don't know if we'll be heard, but I think it's very important that we do try to get all of the pieces of the picture in place. We talked in the first instance about the public transport. I think that if we can help the bodies that are sitting in offices elsewhere understand how important the Little Bluestone Cottage is and how important the Glencairn estate is, and that if you walk around and check out some of those incredible properties, it doesn't need to be one or the other. We should be able to protect those areas and then have density in other areas. But yeah, it's about the interface. We can't just go, and it is happening right now, 16 stories down to a 2-story house that's been there for 60 years or whatever. So I guess we'll continue to do our best in this space, and hopefully we will be heard.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Politis.
I looked at this proposed submission, and I thought it was an incredibly well thought out, intelligent and very, very comprehensive piece of work, because it picks up on some very, very complex issues and rightful concerns around the livability, around things like infrastructure, around jobs. It's got really useful data in it around the growth that we've experienced and the corresponding job growth, and what density may mean and impact in the future, particularly as we have lost some floor space for the creation of jobs. And I do believe that already we have the attention of relevant state ministers, and I think that it is really important that we keep up this level of advocacy. But I'm actually quite optimistic that given what I've seen in this report and the engagement that I've had with the officers, that we can come up with something or get government to respond to us in a manner that we ensure the livability and the growth of our municipality is done in a very positive way. So I think I'd like to think our future is in safe hands, and we will see the density that we need. We will see the housing growth, but along with that, we will ensure that our municipality is good and livable.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Irvin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank the team that's been working on this. It's a huge amount of work to go through this process. And essentially, really carefully examining the state government's methodology for deciding, the different areas that would be the core and inner and outer catchments, and essentially just reapplying that to Merri-bek, to Brunswick and Coburg, and providing suggestions of how that methodology could be better applied. It's a huge amount of work, and I really appreciate the team that's been doing that. And as our submission says, we really welcome the density. We see the impact of the lack of housing, especially for younger generations. And Brunswick especially has been doing a lot in terms of creating, denser, and then in recent years, really livable, special places. And we see what makes those places livable. It is the green space. It is about having good access to public transport. It's about having, leafy, diverse, inviting open space and really bustling and vibrant shopping streets. So we know all the sort of magic ingredients that create livable suburbs. And in my view, creating these conditions, enables more housing. I think you have to be really careful about what order you're doing it in. I think kind of the Breeze Street example in Brunswick is one where we've had the development over several years, and now we're kind of having to retrofit the street to make it appropriate for a large number of people to live on. And ideally, we'd want to be doing it simultaneously or even creating the really great streets before we put in the housing. And our submission certainly speaks to that. We are asking for more investment in public transport in this area and all of the supporting infrastructure that housing requires. So thanks again to the team. And yes, please have your say. This is a public consultation, so it's not just council that's making a submission. You can get involved and come along to the drop-in session next Wednesday at Ballum Place as well if you want to give more feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We now have 7.11, submission to the State Government Residential Mid-Rise Code Reform. Councillor Iwasaki to move and Councillor Svensson to second.
So this report provides the state with a submission from council regarding some really important design standards and sustainability requirements that council has worked really hard on that may be changed. And I had the good fortune, along with Mayor Davidson, to meet with the advisor to the Environment Minister and try to get across that we've done a lot of great work in this space for environmentally sustainable design, and we'd like to see that the mid-rise residential development reforms integrate some of our good work and not lose out on that as there's change requirements. And just as a side note, the Victorian government put out the State Design Book consultation, which looked at the design of buildings and had residents nominate buildings that demonstrated potentially great design to be incorporated. And I was one of 176 community members who contributed. Anybody else in here, by the way? It's a very low probability. But in that, I really emphasize that in our communities with mid-rises and I guess every kind of development, we need to focus on environmental sustainability to increase community resilience to climate change, and also just to have better standards that we've been missing for a long time. And having poor standards means that it's more expensive to cool our homes, that we need to spend more, the insulation has never been great, and that we need to, as a community, invest more in from ratepayers in terms of green spaces that developments, as they're put in, should be putting in at the same time. So thank you, Mayor Davidson, for having me in your office with some of our directors and working on that together. And it's good to see that included in this report and sent through to the state.
Yeah, it's a great collaboration. Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. Councillor Svensson.
Definitely agree with Councillor Iwasaki's comments. Most of the most livable places in the world are full of medium density. So most people agree that more medium density is a good thing, but what sometimes gets missed from the conversation is that it's kind of only a good thing if those houses themselves are livable, if they're good quality, if they contribute to the community around them. And this submission is about trying to ensure that. So the risk that happens when we make it easier to build buildings is we make it easy to build crappy buildings that are really cheap for developers to build, that nobody wants to live in, but they have to because we're in a housing crisis, and eventually they'll need to be rebuilt. And that's the worst case scenario that we need. Well, everything needs to be rebuilt eventually, but the worst case scenario is that these need to be rebuilt really soon. And this is the future that we want to avoid, and this is part of what this submission talks about, is that we want to maintain a degree of, we want to maintain high standards of design quality, even as we're facilitating increasing density and providing more housing. But another important part of this submission is not just about design quality, but it's about keeping the voices of residents in the process. So about keeping residents' ability to appeal to VCAT, because as part of the process of pushing through housing reform, increasingly, we're seeing communities' voices being taken out of those processes. And we know how important it is for communities to be involved in all aspects of government. And I'm pleased to see that this is touching on that of trying to ensure that communities' voices are still heard in the developments that are built in their community, whilst agreeing that we need more density to support more housing.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Councillor Abood.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel quite pleased that we've heard from two of the new councillors in the group. And I want to just make a comment about what it was like the first time I got elected here to council. Planning and the planning applications that were coming through the chamber were kind of like a wild bronco at a rodeo. And the planners who tamed that wild beast and have quite obviously put together this document are predominantly still here in this place. And I think it's reflected in the paper, and it's reflected in the development down in Brunswick that's happened since about 2016 and a little bit beforehand, and it eased off fairly quickly, but there was a lot of stuff built very quickly, and some of those buildings now are so well established that the deep root planting, for example, that is spoken about in this document, there are trees now that are significant canopy in part of those areas, and there are green walls with actually have vines growing up them. And so I think that this submission is really important on a statewide level, because what it can do is it can provide other activity centre packages or projects rather that other cities are experiencing and trying to respond to with this increased density as a kind of a guidebook to go by. That if we can continue to manage the density but have, a scenario where you can get a cross breeze through your apartment, or you can look down into a big central courtyard with a big open green space, which I'm thinking about Little Miller, which I had the pleasure of visiting the other day. Or you can have setbacks like we've got over here at the Assemble development, where a super busy 4-lane road has enough space away from the building so that it doesn't feel scary to walk or ride a bike or push a pram along a footpath. So I think I really want to commend this submission, and I encourage everybody who's into this sort of thing to really read it deeply, because some of the detail is specifically relative to what you can see in real time down, especially further south, but all the way up here as well. And I'm really glad that these people are still writing these papers for us. I think we're really lucky.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Bolton.
I'm glad one of the points in the submission is to retain third-party review rights. Now, I'm a bit pessimistic about this, unfortunately, because the whole public discussion has been get rid of people from having a say in development and what their community should look like. And I think that is disastrous, because people's involvement in being able to put in objections or whatever does result in better developments, not worse developments. And if we get a whole lot of crap apartment buildings, then it just leads to more urban sprawl, because people want to get out of them as fast as they possibly can, or as fast as they can afford to. So we really need third-party review rights, and it doesn't matter how many experts have been involved in planning. You need the view of people who are living in a space. It's very easy to be part of planning things but in an abstract sense, but there is a need for that lived experience. But also I think it is some other important points here are about canopy tree requirements and environmental sustainable design and so on and so forth. And I really do worry that with the whole discourse about getting rid of people's voices out of planning,
we're going to end up with a situation in Sydney where there's 2 big apartment buildings, quite new, which have such massive cracks that people aren't allowed to live in them anymore. So if people had started buying those apartments, they're now paying rent plus a mortgage for an apartment they can't live in. And we've had the flammable cladding crisis. So we need the people's voices in this process.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. I'll move on to 7.12, Connolly Avenue Safety Improvements. Is there a councillor who wishes to move this item?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Councillor Abood, and a seconder. Councillor Bolton.
I know everybody was fighting themselves to want to second this because it's been around for a little while, longer than a result of the notice of motion that I submitted at the request of a community campaign which asked us to take a look at Connolly Avenue. Connolly Avenue is listed as a residential local street, but if you don't live on it, you probably just think of it as a rat run. And it's not a rat run, it's actually a livable residential street, and it's a local street. And what's happened is it's formed a shortcut between Elizabeth Street and Murray Road. Murray Road and Elizabeth Street are not our roads, they're state-controlled roads. Otherwise, we might make some significant changes to those as well. But, oh yeah, I should also mention there's a slight amendment, which is an extra point. Thank you. So
I'll just check, Councillor Bolton, that's still agreeable. Yeah.
So basically what we've done is we've taken a closer look at Connolly Avenue that we can control. In this stage, in this context, I'm not talking about Murray Road, although I could talk about it for the rest of the night. What we're doing here is we're, in the first instance, installing some speed humps at the top of Connolly Avenue towards Murray Road, broadening out, narrowing the intersection crossing. When you come out of Connolly Avenue onto Murray Road on the east side, it's very, very wide. And it means that if you're zooming down the hill on Murray Road from Preston, you can zoom straight around the corner into Connolly Avenue. But unfortunately, there's a childcare centre there, and it's quite a narrow street, and some absolutely colossal accidents have occurred. So narrowing that intersection will help that be more manageable. The second part of the project is adding speed humps on Meadow Street as well, which is sort of another rat run straight through the guts, and also down in the south end of Connolly Avenue. I'd like to thank the council officers who ran the consultation down at the Newlands Senior Citizen Centre and everybody who came by that had a chat, and also especially thank Kate Hall and the Safer Walking and Riding Murray Road, also known as Swarm, group who've just been advocating for something to happen down there for some time. I've added the extra 0.5 because if you know the neighbourhood, where Connolly Avenue comes out onto Murray Road and meets Outlook Road is kind of a little bit of a dogleg. And Outlook Road is a very busy road, especially on basketball days, but we can't really control that intersection without the state government's involvement, and I think it would be beneficial to align them. The other advocacy point, which has had quite a bit of work done on it already, is for a pedestrian crossing at Goth Street, which is in the notes but not listed there in the resolution, but for particularly school kids to get across the road from the Darebin side into the Merri-bek side and get down to Coburg High.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Bolton.
Yes, 100% support these proposals. This is one of the many dangerous areas along Murray Road, the intersection of Connolly Street and Connolly Avenue and Murray Road. And one thing to be very aware of is there's a really large childcare centre very close to that intersection. And when cars whiz around the corner, like the little kids going to childcare are too short for drivers to be able to see, a lot of drivers to be able to see. And there have been some very close shaves for a lot of parents and carers taking kids to that childcare centre when crossing Connolly Avenue. So I think the proposals to slow down the traffic entering and exiting that intersection, going into and out of Connolly Avenue, really important. Aligning the Outlook Road and Connolly Avenue at Murray Road would also be very important. There really needs to be a pedestrian crossing there as well, because people can't cross Murray Road to get to the bus. That's a massive issue, is access to public transport, because there's nowhere safe to cross Murray Road. But just improving this Connolly Avenue intersection where it meets Murray Road will make life so much better for parents taking their kids to childcare.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll now move on to 7.13, Advisory Committee appointments of members. Is there a councillor who wishes to move the revised recommendation, which will be put up on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Abood. And a seconder? Councillor Irvin, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Abood.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. I think we pride ourselves on our, inviting people from the community to be involved in these groups, and it's definitely something that I've really enjoyed over my time as a councillor. So yeah, congratulations to the people who've put their hands up, and also thank you to the people who've returned again. There's quite a lot of people that we've listened to for some period of time, and also some brand new faces. So I'm pretty excited, especially specifically about the Arts Advisory Group or Advisory Committee, because I'm on it, and look forward to seeing what happens.
Great, thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Irvin?
Yes, just to say, really looking forward to the advisory committees and reference groups being set up again. It's such a great part of being able to engage with the community and people who really have a keen interest in what goes on in council. And it's such a useful way to get feedback from the community. So really looking forward to those getting started up again. And congratulations to everyone who's on one.
Great, thank you, Councillor Irvin. If there's no further... Oh, Councillor... Oh, you're voting. Okay. Very good. I know. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Oh, right. Okay. Yes. All right. I'm glad everyone's moving quickly. So we'll move on to 7.14, Road Management Plan. Is there a councillor to move? Councillor Chris Miles, and a councillor to second, Councillor Iwasaki. Thank you, Councillor Miles.
Yeah. There's some really great things in that, but we've got a lot on tonight. So I'm just going to speak to one thing that, since being elected, I've got absolutely passionate about is footpaths. So I'm so glad to see that we're going to start intervening on dangerous, footpath that could potentially be dangerous a lot earlier. We're moving from over 30 millimetres to 25 millimetres to 30 millimetres to start intervening with dangerous bits of footpath. And this is so important for our community because it affects older people with walking sticks, young people in prams, people on crutches, and just people with bad ankles like me walking around Merri-bek. I think you could get everyone from Gowan Bray to Brunswick East, and I'd all say that they want, footpaths are so important to them. So I'm so glad that we're going to start working a little bit earlier on these footpaths and preventing them from getting worse, because it potentially would be cheaper to start working on them before they become a huge issue. So I'm really glad, and there's a lot of good stuff in this. So, I never thought I'd be so passionate about footpaths when I got elected to this place. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Iwasaki.
The roads must be managed. Actually, I was walking yesterday, Councillor Miles, and I was just reflecting that I need to carry a ruler around because there's one particularly egregious spot on Oven Street that I was wondering is going to fit into this new category of getting some action done. So yes, I am now thinking of footpaths more than I ever have.
Is it 25 centimetres?
Well, I need to find, I think, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Exactly.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Bolton and then Councillor Politis.
I'd actually like to just thank someone who was on the previous council who didn't stand again, Monica Hart, who
was on the older persons reference group and had previously worked in aged care, and really drew council's attention to the fact that in aged care, people consider trip hazards at a much lower height than what most councils consider. And most councils let things go a very long time before they take intervention. I think the industry standard is for even lower than 25 millimetres, but still this is an improvement for Merri-bek. And because we know that if people, especially elderly people or people with disability, fall, often it deters them from walking again on the streets. So it's actually a very serious issue, and we don't want people to lose confidence in being able to walk on the streets. And yeah, and there are, you know, I mean, obviously Merri-bek has, like all councils have, thousands of kilometres of footpaths to manage, and you know, there's some areas where people report things to council and some areas where people don't. But this is a very serious issue. But also, while, yes, I know we want to see a big uptake in active transport, roads also do need to be maintained as well. And so, because that is in the interest of everyone, pedestrians have to cross roads, cyclists use roads as well as cars and so forth, and public and buses. So we do need, the road management plan is an important part of our service.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Politis?
Thank you. I just want to quickly pick up on what Sue Bolton was saying about older people and the need to have our footpaths in good working order, and also share that over the years, in my volunteer work with elderly clubs, there have been at least 3 people that I know of who have fallen on a footpath in Brunswick, and as a consequence of that have ended up in aged care, because often for older people, a fall on the road is, the beginning of the end. They're on that slippery slope into aged care. So I'm very pleased to see this plan. It's really important, especially for our older people.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We now have the financial management report for the period ending the 31st of August 2025. Is there a councillor who wishes to move this report? Councillor Aboud, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Pulford. Thank you. Councillor Aboud.
Okay, just quickly, still showing a surplus, but it's not as big a surplus as we would have liked. And there are lots and lots and lots of things that we're referring to future budgets. So we need to keep our eyes on the prize and make sure we don't mess up what we're spending.
Thank you, Councillor Aboud. Councillor Pulford.
Nothing further to add.
Thank you. In that case, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll move on to the governance report, October 2025, cyclical report. Councillor Pulford has his hand up and Councillor Svensson to second.
Thank you, Mayor. This is every month we have this report. It groups together a range of different issues, often includes records of meetings, releasing them publicly, responses to questions taken on notice during previous council meetings. This one also has a lot to do with our Audit and Risk Committee. It has minutes from the previous Audit and Risk Committee meeting, endorses their performance report, and notes their recommendations and findings, as well as endorses the updated charter for the Audit and Risk Committee. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Svensson. No? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that report to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We'll now move on to 7.17. This is the Oak Park Contract Award RFT 2025-2036 Electrification Project, Oak Park Sports and Aquatic Centre. Is it Councillor Theodosis and Councillor Pulford to second? Please go ahead, Councillor Theodosis.
Thank you. This is a report to kickstart the process of electrifying Oak Park pools. I'm really happy to see progress on this, and it's also great that Council was able to obtain a grant from the federal government to help fund this project. In order to get the pool to net zero, we will need to remove the sole reliance on gas boilers for the pool water heating and install a new plant to provide the primary source of heating. We know that pools are a great space for people to come together and stay connected, stay active and stay healthy. And having a place for people to come and cool down during the scorching Melbourne summer days, particularly for working families who don't have access to air cons or who are concerned about electricity prices and the cost of living, which will only get tougher as our climate gets warmer. So I think it's great that we're making this step to help with getting Merri-bek to net zero and continuing to invest in our pools.
Thank you, Councillor Theodosis. Councillor Pulford.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just really excited that this is happening. We as a council have done so much over the years to reduce our own emissions, but about 21% of our emissions as a council are from our aquatic and leisure centres. The new Fawkner one is already electrified. We've just upgraded it and we didn't put in gas boilers there, which I think was a really smart decision. I'm really proud of that decision made by the last council. So all that's left in our aquatic centres are Oak Park. This is worth about 5% of our emissions, Coburg Leisure, which is about 6% of our annual emissions, and then Brunswick Baths, which is 10%. So this will help us reduce 5% of our corporate emissions, which is quite substantial. And I'm glad it's happening now because the sooner we can get our pools off gas, the more we can save in terms of climate pollution, and the safer our climate future will be. The next step will be getting Coburg Leisure off gas when that's up for redevelopment in the next decade, basically. And then also Brunswick Baths, and we're looking at how we can if we expand Brunswick Baths, how we can future-proof that expansion by making sure it can fit the heat pumps in that limited site area as well. So I think Council's done some really great work on this, and yeah, thank you to the federal government for the grant to help us make this happen, and hope it passes this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Bolton.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic development, but I must admit I have to think that what would it have been like if we had have done this when the Oak Park pool was built? Because I was pushing for us to have an Oak Park pool based on renewable energy and not on gas. And what this whole experience shows is when you put in gas infrastructure, it's not a transitional fuel. It stays there as, longer and longer and longer. And we could have saved so much in terms of emissions if we'd have installed electric right at the beginning when we did the pool. But anyway, I think it's great that now there's stronger support on council for shifting away from gas and onto renewable energy, and also there's now some very dedicated staff who are working on these projects, so I think that's good. I just wish we could have done this much like at the very beginning when we installed this pool, because it's pretty new still.
Thank you. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, I declare that carried. We now have 7.18, contract variation, pathway and e-pathway software, maintenance and support. Is there a councillor who wishes to move this report? Thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Miles to second. Thank you, Councillor Abood.
Yeah, this is sort of similar to the same motions of its type that I've stood to put. Basically just talks about this big transition that we're making to sort out our software in the place so that everything works a bit more smoothly.
Thank you. Councillor Mills? No? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, I declare that carried. We now have our notices of motion, and the first one is the Harold Stevens athletic track. Councillor Politis.
Thank you, Mayor. This motion asks for a review of current management arrangements at the Harold Stevens track, also known as the Coburg Athletics track.
And is there a second?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Yep. No, that's fine. And Councillor Miles to second. Thank you.
Sorry. I was so keen to talk to this one. The reasoning behind this is that the centre has been managed for a very, very long time by a group of volunteers for at least 20 years, possibly longer. And we're experiencing a decline in volunteerism. That's across the board. That's not just restricted to the Coburg Athletic Centre. But at the same time, there is increased demand for usage, particularly as we densify and more people are moving into the area. We have around 15,000 students per year that use that centre, in addition to the 2 clubs that operate out of there. So we've got the junior club, which is the Coburg Little Athletic Centre, and we have the Harriers, that is the club for adults. So this motion asks for a review of those arrangements. Centres across Victoria operate under a variety of different arrangements, and this is an opportunity to explore possibly a better and more effective way of managing the centre that relies a little less on volunteers, which we know can be a little bit shaky.
Thank you very much, Councillor Politis. Councillor Miles. If there's no further speakers, I'll put that notice of motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, Councillor Politis. We'll now move on to councillor attendance at ALGA conferences at 8.2. Councillor Svensson to move and Councillor Abood to second.
I'm just going to move.
Oh, sorry.
Move. I combined move with Abood. It's that time of the evening.
Happens to me all the time.
Yes, I'm just going to move a slightly amended motion. I think the wording is up there. The amendment just adds into the motion that we will also review the process of councillors reporting their attendance at approved activities. Otherwise, the motion remains the same. This was deferred at the last council meeting so that we could have a bit more conversation and gather a bit more information to inform the decision. So given we've discussed this last time, I won't go over it in a massive amount of detail, but the reason why I brought this motion is given the importance of being responsible with public funds. It's about trying to look at ways that we can better balance the need for professional development for councillors, but also balancing how we can be fair in the way that we allocate funds for professional development, and so that that's financially responsible as well.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Councillor Abood?
Especially like that line in red at point 3, which says review the process of reporting, since I feel like it was my idea. The most important part of this notice of motion for me is the fact that the ALGA National General Assembly this year saw the highest attendance it's ever had. And that's not because there are more councils having more councillors, it's because more councillors went to ALGA. I think it's good to check this out.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Bolton.
Yes, while this motion doesn't go as far as I'd like it to go, I think it is a good step forward of limiting a councillor's attendance to once per term. My personal opinion is we shouldn't have any more than 2 councillors attend. There's only 1 councillor who gets to vote on behalf of the council, so what's there to do for all of the other councillors? Because I, don't think professional development should be at council's expense. But anyway, besides that, I think it is a very positive thing that Councillor Svensson is proposing this, as well as reviewing the process of councillors reporting their attendance at approved activities, because we might be able to get onto a better track with all of that. And also noting what's in the councillor support expenses and resources policy, etc. I think it's a positive motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Are there any further speakers? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Yep. All those in favour? So that we have Councillor Svensson, Councillor Pulford, Councillor Miles, Councillor Theodosis, Councillor Abood, Councillor Bolton, Councillor Irvin, Councillor Iwasaki. All those against? Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Davidson, and 1 abstention. Thank you, Councillor Politis. We'll now move on to the next notice of motion, which is 8.3, Bus Shelter Program in Merri-bek. And we have Councillor Bolton to move and Councillor Aboud to second.
So I'm moving a slightly amended motion. The bits that are new are in red. So basically what this motion is about the need to increase the number of bus stops that have bus shelters and or bus seats. And I've the bit that's been added is to also, there might be some bus stops where it's more important to have a bus seat.
I'll just stop you there. So, Councillor...
Sorry, yeah, I just need to withdraw my second. I'm concerned about the point 3.
Okay.
It's just in keeping with my comments about spending money.
No problem. It's Councillor Crawford to take up seconding. Sorry.
And we can always vote for the points separately.
Can I just... Okay, so I'm sorry, Mayor and councillors, just you'd recall that in the governance rules, a notice of motion cannot commit more than $5,000 nor refer to the budget, $100,000. So it can, so it can include that receiving in the report, but it can't be accepted as worded. Sorry, we tried to communicate with you earlier, Councillor Bolton.
Yeah, I thought I did. I did hear a communication, but I thought I'd fix it up. So could it be consider
that the report? If you just make it a final dot point,
the report considers...
So turn that into a dot point, so consideration of referral to next year's budget process, of $100,000 each year. So that would be another dot point under 2.
Yeah, I thought my consideration in the middle was sufficient, but...
This refers to next year's budget.
Yeah.
So then it would be part of the report, not a decision right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, I didn't properly fix that up. It wasn't meant to be a point 3, it was meant to be deleted. Yeah, okay, all good. That's all sorted. So basically we need to look at both options, and because Melbourne doesn't have such an extensive bus network as, say, a city I had a lot to do with in my 20s, Brisbane, where there are a lot of bus shelters and bus seats. Not every single bus stop has a bus shelter or bus seat, but there are way more bus shelters and bus seats. And I know there have been 2 places in Fawkner I've fought for and achieved bus seats and bus shelters. And there are other requests as well, many requests. And I know I've witnessed in Glenroy, outside Glenroy College and another location in Glenroy, people taking seats from hard rubbish and putting them at bus stops. And the one outside Glenroy College was sitting there for months and months because people need seats to sit on. People have arthritis, frail, all sorts of reasons why people might need to sit. And the absence of bus seats and bus shelters is an extra deterrence from using public transport unless people are desperate. So if public transport is inconvenient, then people will look for other means of getting around. So I think it's very simple, and also, it's a way of taking cars off the road, and, mass public transit is a very important part of getting around the city. And if there are other things, obviously, that need to be done, but this is an important one. And certainly one of the bus shelters in Fawkner I fought for was a spot where, someone in the Nepalese community raised with me about an elderly woman waiting for a bus in the pouring rain with nowhere to sit and no shelter, and it is the closest bus stop to Fawkner train station, so it's a clear transit point. So this is a very necessary thing for us to address this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Yes, Councillor Fulford, thank you.
Yeah, not much more to add, just supportive of this notice of motion. I know that Council has installed seats or at bus stops or bus shelters or both in the past, and there is a huge need in our community. I know it's not necessarily our kind of key work, but I think I'm supporting of getting a report back about building in just a small line item in our budget that means we are chipping away at this bigger problem, which is the lack of seats at bus stops, which limits people's ability to get around our community and to where they need to go.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Abood.
I also think that this is a really important notice of motion, and except I do think that there's a little bit missing, which is to do with the fact that a lot of the bus stops are actually quite inaccessible. So regardless of whether they have seats which make them or not, or they don't have seats which make them inaccessible, quite a lot of the bus stops are situated so that they have advertising at one end which you can't see through. And if you're riding on the footpath like the kids who are going to Coburg High along Murray Road, you have to actually get down onto the road to go around the bus stop, but also you need to stop because you can't see if there's another bike coming from the opposite direction. And I was trying to get these points across on Monday night at the briefing, and the space became really unsafe for me to keep talking, so I didn't bother pushing through with it. But I think we're missing something important about that level of accessibility where the bus stop and the bus route is actually on a bicycle path as well.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Miles.
I'm just sort of an amendment, and I haven't completely got this together, but just sort of looking at Merri-bek as a council, when we sort of get further south, we have more trains and trams, bus, more options. But the further north we get, we seem to have a separation a long way from trains and trams and stuff like that. I wonder if we think we could sort of prioritise bus stops that are further away from other optional public transport, like being further away from train stations and tram stops, so it was more where it wasn't necessarily close. Now I haven't sort of worked out the wording or something like that, but if we prioritise distance from other options of public transport, because train stations have places where people can sit and trams sort of do as well, but buses don't.
So perhaps you could say something along the lines of, at point 2, right down the bottom, with priority given to...
distance from other options. Or considers giving priority to.
Yep, considers giving priority to bus stops that are like not
further away from other options.
Yeah, further away from other public transport options.
Sorry, that was just the top of my head.
Sorry, would that be agreeable to the mover and seconder?
And also, I think maybe when the report comes back...
Oh, and Councillor Bolton, I think you need to put your...
I'm agreeable with that as an amendment. And also, I think when the report comes back, we could, include the point that Councillor Abood is referring to. I'm very aware of that on major roads. And I think that's because bus companies have used advertising companies to money from advertising to install
Councillor
those.
Bolton, you've spoken
Oh, sorry,
once. Yep, so now, who else would like to speak? You've already spoken. Yeah. Okay. I think Councillor Pulford has agreed to... Yes?
Just to make clear that could also consider east-west, because while Brunswick has good north-south trams and trains and trams, east-west is hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's keep to the meeting procedure, but it's a very good discussion to have. All right, so now are there any further speakers? If there's no further speakers, thank you for the collaborative effort, and I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We now have 8.4, procurement policy and sub-minimum wages for disabled people in segregated workplaces.
So this is me, and I believe I got a seconder of this meeting.
Councillor Svensson to second.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. So this is a bit different to the original motion I moved a few months ago, which resulted in a briefing of council laws, but it was a behind closed doors briefing, like briefings are, so it's not open to the public. But after that briefing, it made me think of what way to move forward with this issue. And for people who are watching online or here in the audience, this is about the question of sub-minimum wages for disabled people in segregated workplaces where they're paid $3 an hour, basically. And the Fair Work Act has a special exemption for these enterprises, and it's basically called the where is it? The supported wage system, which specifically exempts some organisations from paying proper wages. After the last briefing and my last motion, I realised I need to be more specific about Australian disability enterprises because my previous motion took up other sub-minimum wages, which are junior wages. And that's still an issue for people with disabilities who are being paid junior wages, as was evidenced in the last council meeting where there was a woman who was deaf who's experienced both the segregated workplaces of $3 an hour as well as being paid junior wages as an adult person with adult expenses. But I feel that it is more achievable if we move towards not procuring from organisations that pay these horrific $3 an hour wages. And the impact of these wages is that people might not be able to move out of unpleasant group homes. Just imagine what that's like when you're a captive in a group home where you don't get along with other people, or other people might be bullying you or whatever. I mean, someone else has selected who you're going to live with, not you. But also beyond that, unlike junior wages or apprenticeship wages or traineeship wages, where there's an expectation that you will graduate onto adult wages, these wages are for life. And some people get bullied into sheltered workshops by inhumane carers. Some people are not allowed to resign from these places as a result of threats. Some people work their entire working life for $3 an hour, and then they have extra expenses in addition to their disability because their bodies are broken from a lifetime of work. So it's really inhumane, and it's been taken up by the UN Rapporteur on Human Rights and Modern Slavery.
Thank you. Councillor Svensson.
I've previously spoken to why I think it's important for all levels of government to consider what they can do as part of their role in abolishing sub-minimum wages. So I won't speak to everything that I've said previously, but just to keep it shorter, we are a council that has for many, many years prided ourselves on our approach to social justice, and an absolutely essential element of social justice is economic justice. This is about economic justice for people with a disability. We know that people with a disability are far more likely to experience poverty in Australia, and we also know that, that sub-minimum wages don't help more disabled people get into employment. You just need to look at Australia compared to other countries and countries that do not have sub-minimum wages. There are many who have much higher levels of employment for disabled people. What we need to do if we want to have more engagement of disabled people in the workplace is to support people with accommodations so that they can contribute, and acknowledge that everybody deserves to have a livable wage regardless of your ability or disability.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Are there any further speakers? No. If there's no further speakers, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? And I declare that carried.
I get a division on that?
Yeah. All those in favour? Councillor Svensson, Councillor Pulford, Councillor Miles, Councillor Theodosis, Councillor Abood, Councillor Bolton, Councillor Irvin, Councillor Iwasaki. All those against, Councillor Politis and Councillor Davidson abstained. We'll now move on to the Metropolitan Transport Forum at 8.5, and that is Councillor Bolton to move.
So Metropolitan Transport Forums, for people who don't know, well, I mean, all councils in Melbourne, as far as I know, send a delegate to the Metropolitan Transport Forum, and they organise... Oh, Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, yes, good point.
Yes, is there a
yes.
seconder? Yeah. Councillor
Councillor Bolton moved, I seconded.
Yeah.
So just the other way around. Yeah.
So this is a forum. This forum talks about transport issues. I've never been on it. I think Councillor Iwasaki is on. Oh, Councillor Irvin. Anyway, other councillors are on it. But this forum organises for candidate forums in the lead up to every state election in a range of different local council areas across Melbourne. But ever since I've been aware of these forums, they've always been held in Brunswick at Brunswick Town Hall. And my experience in the past is that public transport issues don't really get discussed very much at these forums. And certainly some of the issues in other parts of Merri-bek, like particularly the upfill line, where trains get cancelled if they're more than 6 minutes or more late in peak hour, leaving people at people at the threat of losing their job for not turning up to work on time, etc., and other terrible things. And so my feeling is, I did mention